Oh, hey everyone. So I've been avoiding this one because I don't feel like being disappeared, but here we go. Today we'll be taking a look at the GBRS Assaulters Belt V2. And then you can see if this belt is a good choice for you or not. All right, let's get to it. Before we get too far though, I already did a loadout video, and I'll put a link to it up here where I kind of showed everything we connect into this belt. If you want to see why we chose each of the individual pieces and what we ended up with in the overall loadout. But let's start again with who the heck GBRS Group is and what's their angle. GBRS is a team of prior military Tier 1 operators that provide tactics and skill trainings for some law enforcement, federal agents, and military special forces. And they often share a lot of really good information through their knowledge transfer series, and I really like those. So regardless of my like or dislike of their belt, I do want to comment on how much I really enjoy the knowledge that they share. But I guess the big question is, does operating at that Tier 1 level translate over into being able to design a good end product? Like if you rode a ton of roller coasters or flew a fighter jet, would you then be able to make the next best roller coaster or design the newest fighter jet? And we'll see, but I have a way bigger concern. The military needs for a battle belt and the civilian needs for one, well, they can really be quite different. And I'm concerned that the GBRS tier would have a mindset that would design for like an ultra niche market, but then sold to you as a regular consumer with a configuration that could be a little bit useless, while then also being sold to you at a premium government contract price. I guess we'll see though. So what's the battle belt we're looking at today? Well, I guess we'll see what our actual battle belt ranking is first. You all wanted to see something similar to the plate carrier ranking, so here is my current order of belts. In the top spot is currently the Axle Eclipse, with the rigid lightweight design that has a price point to just blow the competition out of the water. And it seems like they fixed whatever butt disaster was going on with their shipping, thankfully. Followed by the Axle is the Ronin Sentient Second. This gives you a high quality belt that just does so many things right and can take an absolute beating in any environment. Next and third, I have the Warrior Poet Double Molle belt. This belt's great construction and features, along with a competitive price, give it a top spot. Next and fourth is the Wilder Tactical belt. This belt system uses a design and attachments that just show an ingenuity and innovation you don't see anywhere else. In fifth, I have the T-Rex Arms Orion. The single attachment system makes it extremely versatile for any environment. Then in sixth, I have the Eagle Operator belt with the reversed Velcro to drive everyone insane, followed by the Blue Force Gear CHLK, and last with the poor dual attachment belt method, obscure molly points, and odd flare to my butt region. My butt just doesn't have that much butt to it. So then today we'll see how the Assaulters Belt V2 from GBRS stacks up. First though, we'll look over the entire belt and show you the outer belt and all its features. Then take a look at the inner belt that's included, and if it's, and here's some foreshadowing, the Achilles heel of this entire setup. It is. And then we'll give some belt rankings with price, ease of attachments, buckle style, weight, rigidity, inner and outer belt design, and overall inner and outer belt adhesion. And then we'll see where it all ranks on our final ranking chart. I tell you what though, let's get started, and I'll see if I can stay nice so I can live a little bit longer. But let's start taking a look at that actual outer belt first. So here we have our Assaulters Belt V2 in this badass multicam black colorway. And the first obvious difference I see is that the molle has been replaced with tegris. I'm concerned this will actually cause some compatibility issues with some other attachments, but it also already doesn't really do what tegris is designed to do. The way the tegris is cut and formed, it's not really adding much additional rigidity over a standard belt. Moving down, we see the buckle also comes equipped with a D-ring that is held in place with a strip of hook and loop. And I'm not sure if the D-ring is designed to always stick out, but it doesn't ever really lay flat, and that one wrap doesn't really do anything. And overall, the one wrap kind of gives the whole thing a cheap appearance. Moving to the buckle, we see the standard Cobra buckle, But unlike a lot of new designs, there's no way to remove the buckle to replace it with something without so many safety issues. And a lot of guys out there like to say that this belt is out for testing for use in SOCOM for like helicopters. And I'll tell you right now, that's super unlikely. And that's because to pass that test to be able to be used, the buckle has to be able to release under load. Like if you were dangling from it, you could just disconnect from it and it will let you go. But that's not something a Cobra buckle can do, as the Cobra buckle has to overcome the tension in order to be released. And that's why none of the other belts that use Cobra buckles are actually authorized. So this isn't a ding against GBRS or their belt or their design, it's really more of an actual limitation of the Cobra buckle itself. The rest of the belt is really no frills. There are no attachment point hooks or fancy ways to stow your extra belt length, just one wrap again. Flipping the belt over, we see, well, a challenging design choice. Like the Eagle belt, the Velcro is flipped so the outer Velcro is loop and not hook. And I'll be honest, I hate this. The inner belt has to be so great to support this design choice. And I've had a couple ding-dongs tell me, Walsh, this is so guys in their wetsuits don't get tears in their suits from the Velcro. And somehow in that conversation, they thought that I was the dumb one. But alright, let's just say you're correct. That market is so hilariously small. Yeah, all 8 of you who need this for your wetsuit, well, here you go. But then every other consumer has to suffer the frustration of this design just so those 8 guys can use it on their swimsuit. And y'all are all going to get upset with me here, but it seems like a military-focused belt that would actually need some redesign to be used by the military, but then sold to civilians. It seems like we're answering this whole roller coaster and jet question. But there is one thing that could save this whole belt, and that's the inner belt, so let's take a look at it. Looking at the inner belt, we see a 2-part belt. And this whole thing doesn't inspire a lot of confidence. Taking this apart, we see we have this complete disaster as a base inner belt. The entire belt is floppy, collapses on itself, and collects literally every bit of trash that is even remotely near you. The inner belt does have a plastic buckle to connect in the pullover style like on the Warrior Poet inner EDC belt we all like, but that's about it. Using this for EDC? Yeah, I don't think that's gonna happen. I'll try it though, but wait, we still have this thing. Since the inner belt is hook-backed, you can't just wear this belt without your clothes and all of your gear just getting obnoxiously attached to you. So you have to use the belt cover if you don't have the outer belt on. To don this whole system, you then put the inner belt between your belt loops and pull it taut on the side. And then you take the inner belt cover and start from one side and work around. And you gotta be kind of careful when you're aligning this up, because if you don't do it just right, you get a pretty painful notification. Then, when you have it all lined up, you fold it over the top of the other side of the cover, like the standard overlapping inner belt styles that we absolutely don't enjoy. And while this belt design may be great for military application, this thing sucks to EDC with. Like, unbelievably sucks. This is absolutely the weak point of the entire belt, and quite possibly the worst inner belt I've ever used. And that's because the inner belt is unbelievably flimsy and sharp. So you can't just wear this on its own, and then you're required to place this outer belt nonsense over the inner belt and over your pant loops. And with the inner belt and then the outer belt, you could end up with like 4 different layers of belt on top of one another. So you actually have to plan ahead when putting this on, so some bits don't overlay on top of each other and make it impossible to clip your holster into. And one of the things we talk about liking so much on the Blue Alpha Gear inner EDC belt that like the whole team uses is the ability to just lift up on one side of that inner belt, remove or add your EDC setup, and then just tighten it back down. It's just simple and nice. The GBRS inner belt? No, absolutely not. Like, God forbid you have to actually use the bathroom in this setup. Removing this chastity belt begins with needing to unhook the outer layer on both sides so then you can expose the under adjustment. Remember how we had to offset them though so you could actually EDC? Then once that's open, you can unlock the bottom belt and add in or remove your EDC. And by this time, hopefully you haven't already crapped your pants. And you have to do this process each time your EDC is added or removed. You gotta adjust the inner belt and then reconnect the two outer tabs. This is an absolute mess, and I'll be completely honest, it ruins the entire belt. Since the Velcro is flipped on the outer belt, you can't use any of the other amazing options on the market for inner belt choices. And it's super frustrating to have to go through that whole process and all that nonsense just because some guy doesn't want the Velcro to damage his wetsuit. And my question is, why didn't they just design a better roller coaster? If GBRS would have kept the hook on the outside, but then used the outer facing liner with the outer belt, they could really have the best of both worlds. And the guy with the wetsuit and his sensitive little cake hands would have a liner covering the hook on the belt. And then the rest of us could just use any other inner belt we want, and not the really, really bad one that this belt comes with. But tell you what, I think I'm just ready to get into the testing and the rankings. And for the first test is going to be price. And good Lord, I give this 1 star. As one of the most expensive belts on the market, with some of the worst design decisions, you get a belt that has limited functionality and use, all at a premium price. You literally pay more to get less. The actual Eclipse belt is like 1/3 of the cost of this. Alright though, let's move on to the next test, and it's going to be the ease of actual attachment to the belt, and this gets 2 stars. As I showed you, the GBRS Assaulters Belt uses tegris instead of molle, but it's not that useful. The tegris means you almost always need a tool to install or adjust anything. The rigidity of the tegris also means that attaching other tegris items can be too tight to work at all. And I actually ran into this a few times when I was connecting in some prototype tegris connection methods. It just didn't work at all. Alright then, let's move on to the next test, and that's going to be buckle style, and this gets 2 stars. There's just nothing magical here. You see the legacy Cobra buckle that is known for safety issues and can't be released underweight. It's a basic buckle. And there's no way to actually disconnect the buckle and put in something else like you see in other belts that are half the cost. But let's look at our next test, and that's going to be weight, and for this one I give it 3 stars. The GBRS belt is just basically a Ronin Senshi done backwards, but with tegris, and the tegris doesn't add any significant weight savings at all. From a weight standpoint, it's pretty meh. It's nothing bad, but nothing great. Alright then, our next test is rigidity, and I'm going to give that 2 stars. The Assaulters belt seems rigid where you don't want it, and not where you do. The molle being replaced by tegris doesn't add any noticeable rigidity when compared to a normal molle design. It's nothing like you see on the axle setup. But then all the other bits that you want some flexibility with have none. The belt adjustment itself absolutely requires tools just to make small adjustments. Pain in the ass is an absolutely great way to describe it. Alright then, let's move on to the next one, which is our outer belt design, and I'll give that 2 stars. Here we see some very, very cool aesthetics with some tegris and badass GBRS logo, but it's really more form over function. The reversed Velcro means you can't use a ton of aftermarket bits like offset Esstac mag pouches or Shaw concept pouches that connect in via hook and loop. And it doesn't even give an attachment point for gloves or anything, which is a basic feature we see on Amazon belts. So for the next category, this is the bad one, the inner belt design. And I have to say, the GBRS belt gets the very first honor of getting 0 stars. This wet noodle of a belt just absolutely sucks. Having the belt Velcro flipped means the inner belt becomes incredibly crucial in the design as you can't use any aftermarket products. And this bit makes the entire system fail, and fail hard. The next category is inner and outer belt adhesion, and I give this a 3. With adhesion, you're dealing with 2 shearing forces around the belt. One lateral around you, and this does well, and the other direction is vertical. I found no issues with the belt coming loose through either shearing force. But the GBRS belt also doesn't go out of its way to maximize one shearing force over the other, like it should. Alright then, that's all of our tests, so let's see where this thing stacks up. Get your pitchforks ready because I put the GBRS Assaulters Belt V2 in absolute dead last. The premium price for features that only apply to niche users in a wetsuit just doesn't make sense to anyone else. This belt is by far both the most expensive and worst belt I've owned. And as I said at the beginning, my opinion on the Assaulters belt doesn't in any way mean I dislike the GBRS team. I really love what they do. This belt just does not translate over into the civilian market. So then, do I recommend it? Good God, no. But we're looking at it from a civilian angle, and from that perspective, it's pretty terrible. But from like a military use angle, I would just say it's just really bad. On duty, I wouldn't care as much about the inner belt as I'd only wear the inner and outer belt together. I would never just wear that crap belt on its own. Plus, there's also no regulation that lets you wear spaghetti noodles in uniform. But just because I don't like this belt doesn't mean you should. Make sure to make your own opinions. But tell you what, why don't you all join our live chat this Thursday, as I'm probably going to give this belt away. You'll have to outfit it yourself, but at least you'll have a good base. You'll just need to make sure to budget for that wetsuit in order to use it properly. Alright everyone, well I hope this video on the GBRS Assaulters Belt V2 was useful in your purchasing decisions. I want to say thanks to all of our Patreon supporters and all of our YouTube members. You guys make all this possible where we can get all this cool gear and show it off to you. And I want to say thanks to everyone that likes, comments, and subscribes. Comment down below what your favorite battle belt is. Alright everyone, wash out. Off. It's like Indiana Jones with this thing. Good grief. I slapped myself right on the back.